Hello, and welcome to Talking Toddlers, where I share more than just tips and tricks on how to reduce tantrums or build your toddler's vocabulary. We're going to cover all of that, I assure you. But here, our goal is to develop clarity, because in this modern world, it's truly overwhelming, especially during these past 2 years. This podcast is about empowering moms to know the difference between fact and fiction, to never give up, to tap into everyday activities so your child stays on track. He's not falling behind, he's thriving through your guidance. We know that true learning starts at home, and Talking Toddlers, this podcast helps you develop that with clarity, confidence, and clear communication. So let's get started. Hello, and welcome back to Talking Toddlers. I'm Erin Heyer, your host from Higher Learning, and I am continuing our conversation of how to ease into the holidays, how to reduce your stress, how to build natural everyday routines to help improve your toddler's talking and listening. And I include the whole listening part because it's very, very important to realize that the first 12, 14, 16 months are really building their auditory processing. How well are they coding their native language and understanding single words or social phrases? Because that lays the foundation to their ability to then begin communicating verbally with us. And during that time period, perhaps you might want to go back to episodes number 2 and 3 that I produced way back in the beginning of my launch of this podcast back in May of 2022, where I introduced the concept for parents to understand what needs to be in place before their first words are even heard. So there are a lot of noise making, cooing and babbling and just making sounds, and babies and early, 8-month-old, 10-month-old, 12-month-old need to be noisy. Keep that in mind. They need to be noisy, not just crying, but making a lot of vocalization. They're playing with their voice to hear themselves, but also to feel what it's like to inhale and exhale and to move all of those articulators. So go back and listen to episodes 2 and 3 to really lay that foundation of a better understanding of what's necessary. Because once they turn 1 or 14 months or 16 months and those first words really start to pop, it's because receptive language and social engagement, attention, connection with other human beings is pretty solid or are pretty solid, those skills. So as I build this, 12 easy tips to really increase their verbal talking, it also reinforces or builds and strengthens the networks that helps with listening and understanding and auditory processing. There are two sides of the same coin. I even have an episode, can't remember off the top of my head which number it is, but what's the difference between speech and language? And that speech is the physical part of talking. Language is everything else. It's receptive, how well you understand and take in this world, as well as expressive. And it's a very cyclical relationship, and they go hand in hand. So as we continue with easy strategies or tips and tricks that you could use every day to help enhance that, always be mindful of where they are with building that foundation. How well are they attending to you, responding to you, kind of having those social gestures, the smile, the waving goodbye, the giving high five, all of those. And how noisy are they? Are they verbal? Are they making a lot of differentiated sounds? So keep in mind, by their second birthday, They need to be saying all of the vowels. There are 22 different vowel sounds. Again, in previous episodes, I've talked about how there are 5 vowel letters in our alphabet for English, but there are 22 different sounds that we make in order to produce all of our English words. So there's a lot of things happening in those first 12 months, and 16 months, and 18 months. These are some of the everyday things that I've talked about with you guys over the last couple of episodes. So model for them. They need a model. They need to put verbal patterns to make sense of the objects and actions and emotions that carry their daily events, such as eating and getting changed and playing with a dog and going outside and getting the mail and washing our hands and getting in and out of the car and going grocery shopping and meeting friends and all of these things. If we are modeling and narrating what we're doing with them, then they're making that connection, the auditory code for their native language, and they're being attentive to what we're doing together. So number 1 is modeling. Number 2 is be mindful of that technology and please put it away as much as possible. Almost 100% for your 3 and under year olds. I know it's hard. I keep saying that, but I love you. I'm telling you the truth. Please, please, please. Number 3, don't make everything easily accessible. Kind of play helpless. Let them request more than just having a tantrum or a fit. Giving them choices, helping them buy into this verbal communication. Number 4, include your toddler and all of your kids actually with daily routines. Build over time how they can become an active member of your family. Number 5, give them open-ended toys. And this is when I said, okay, I know it's a holiday shopping. You don't have to overwhelm them with tens and tens of gifts or big gifts or multiple gifts. Think about how you can repurpose things. You can use one gift in multiple ways and be creative, but be mindful. Also, yes, number 6 is be creative, right? About repurposing and using things or buying things that are similar to what you do when you clean the house, or, have a little notepad when you take down grocery lists, or when you give them some envelopes where they can put papers inside and collect things they like to do and use everyday activities in real time. So be creative. And then I talked about what are sensory bins, and do you really have to go out and get the toy manufactured, or can you use everyday activities as sensory input, or can you create your own? Get a big Tupperware thing and you can use different kinds of beans or rice or sand or water. It can be indoor, it can be outdoor. Be creative once again. But sensory input, don't always feel like if they respond like, ick, I don't like this slimy shaving cream or slimy goo that you made, then put it away and bring it out later, or model for them how you gingerly touch it and you're like, ooh, and you're laughing and giggling, and it's fun. You do one finger at a time or one thumb, and slowly but surely introduce them to different textures. On that note, we're going to continue with our list of 12 easy tips and strategies to increase their talking and listening, and be mindful of these things when you're shopping. And remember, I also suggested perhaps just a few gifts at Christmas time. They're going to get other gifts from friends or family. Again, a 2, 3, 4, 5-year-old do not remember how many gifts were under the Christmas tree. Give them a gift on New Year's. Give them a gift on St. Patrick's Day. Give them a gift randomly and say, you know what, today is a day that ends in Y and I love you so much. Here's a present. So let's continue with number 8, arts and crafts. And I have to throw out a little caveat here because I am not a crafty person. Never have been, never will be. I do like to make things, but I'm not really arts and crafts. I'm not that type of a therapist. I wasn't that type of a mom. And I think it, spun off on my daughter. She's not artsy and craftsy either, but you can still use, again, keeping it simple, everyday tools or objects or things that help them manipulate with their hands. Again, what we're doing is object play, whether it's coloring. I was a pretty good colorer. I did like that even before it became popular as therapy, right? We have adult coloring books now. I don't color as an adult, but I certainly did in my elementary days and even in high school. I think it was, I did some painting by numbers and all of that stuff. Again, I like structure and order, but coloring, drawing, painting, chalk, any kind of kits, simple kits to make a little birdhouse or simple kit to, put a train together or sew simple little things to make a little dolly or those kinds of things, a collage, cutting, scissors, parents, again, that's a quote unquote academic skill. I would not worry about cutting until they're closer to 4, 5, or 6, even, handwriting, but you want them exposed and given many, many opportunities at this age when their fingers are still little. They're still trying to figure out how to make their thumb and their fingers work together. Think of short, fat. There's a lot of things online that are now designed for this 2, 3, 4, 5-year-old, but you can just get fat crayons and break them in half. That's what you do. You just break them in half and take the paper off of them so they can just really pinch them and hold them tight and encourage them in that pincer grip. But arts and crafts, go online. And so here's an example what I did this fall with a couple of home clients that I had just for the month of October. It was all about Halloween. Every time we worked together, we were doing some social play, some learning how to play together and take turns and that kinds of things I had these 3 separate families, 2 of which had siblings. But again, I'm not really artsy craftsy, but you just Google it online. I'm not a Pinterest person either, but there are a wealth of information and very, very talented people that give you brilliant ideas. So I just Googled Halloween ideas for toddlers, and we made, ghosts with a ping pong ball and some very thin fabric. And we put, tied a bow around it and stuck on some googly eyes. Very simple, but they had to follow some directions. It didn't have to be perfect. It could be playful. We used bright colored bows and sticks. So, some were outlandish and had, gold and glitter and all of this, and some were really basic ghosts, but we got really playful with them. Of course, painting pumpkins are always an easy, again, it wasn't just the face. We just painted it multiple colors. We used our hands. We used paintbrushes. We got messy. This one little boy who's 4, who was just turning 4 in October, he, is very sensitive with getting his hands dirty, but the paint to him was soothing. We did it outside. It could get messy. It was fine. He had to, wash his hands frequently, but he always came back to the pumpkin and he always, painted more. We played, hot potato with a small pumpkin. Again, doing different easy outdoor activities with a lot of creativity around a theme, right? We actually pin the stem on a pumpkin instead of pin the tail on the pumpkin. Again, we made the big pumpkin. We just cut up little pieces. We smushed some paper. Had to tape these papers together to make I'd say it was 4x3 big pumpkin. Stuck it on outside of the garage door. Again, it wasn't beautiful. They thought it was fabulous. I even at the end, this other family, I said to the girl who I think she was almost 4. I said, I was ready to like crumple it all up and throw it away. Cause after we pinned the stem on the pumpkin multiple times, I said, okay, now we'll just clean up our mess. And I said, what do you want to do with the pumpkin? And she's like, hang it in my bedroom. I'm like, okay, let's do it. And Mom said it was good. And we did. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. I think nowadays, we have these unrealistic expectations that it has to be, we see things on advertisements or we see things on Pinterest that look beautiful or we go to the classroom or a preschool and you see some kids are very, very artsy and your kid is like, oh my gosh, what happened over here? He had fun. And one of the key things, and I'll share this with you. I don't think my daughter will mind, but because I'm not arts and craftsy and I don't feel like I was very talented in that area, I really had to help her understand that it's your attitude, right? You go into art class and you just do your best. You have fun and you keep trying, and your teacher isn't going to grade you or judge you on the outcome of your project. It was really like, did you follow the directions? Did you have fun? Were you a good sport? Did you help others? Did you clean up and set up nicely and all these other kinds of things? Did you try your best? Did you not complain or whine or get frustrated that it didn't work out the way you planned? But that's all built in when they're 2 and 3 and 4, and you learn to laugh at yourself when the pumpkin looks funny, or when your cookies, get burnt, or any of those kinds of, homemade projects that turn out a little skewed. And that's okay. What you're doing is helping them experience different textures, different tools, again, working midline, crossing midline, creating a hemispheric dominance. Are they right-handed or left-handed? Typically, I'd say 65% of the kids, you can tell by their second birthday whether they lean right-handed or left-handed. Some kids will take until their 4th or 5th birthday. You do want to be mindful, though, when they switch over. Is it, some kids will use their right hand until the midline and then they cross their hands or they take the tool in their other hand. That's not neurotypical. So we just want to be mindful and set up scenarios where they're really using both hands. Sometimes you kind of prompt their elbow and help them continue to cut or color, or you hold their hand down on one side as they're holding the paper and they're going to color with the right hand, or if they're leaning on their left hand. Again, exposing them to opportunities to explore the world in a wide variety of textures and activities, right? It's all about exposing them or giving them multiple opportunities to engage. And not only just in arts and crafts, but you can do these kinds of same things with cooking, like I said, cleaning and doing laundry. Those everyday routines are also helping them, pour, measure, stir, fold the clothes, pull the socks out apart from each other. All of these manipulative motions help wiring that brain, and it's not just busy work. It's really, really, really important for their early development. So number 9 is cooking together. And I've mentioned this numerous times as it falls into other areas, but I think it was number 4 on this list of 12. But it does deserve a number space all on its own. Because it's very language-rich activity. There's a lot of hand and motor. Later on, there's some math involved. Real life experience that can help them on multiple levels. So just to list a few: following directions, being organized, sequential steps, having them request things. Like in the beginning, you can talk about all the items that you need for each step. It's a precursor to reading. Oh, look, here are the instructions. I'm going to read it to you. I'm going to point to the words and you follow along with me. These are the steps involved. And then once you could read the simple, say there, hopefully there's just 3 or 4 little steps. And then later on, a couple minutes later, you ask them, okay, what do I do next? What comes after we pour the flour in the bowl? Do you remember? So that's a memory task, right? It's helping them pay attention. Do I put the eggs in or do I put it in the oven? Again, these 2 choices are very opposing steps, right? And so you make it kind of straightforward. Oh no, we need eggs and then we need to mix it up and then we put it in the oven, right? So helping them understand the logic of it. You can have a lot of labeling of verbs and showing them grammatical markers like, oh, we are mixing, we are stirring, we are blending. Those are all multiple word meanings, right? We can mix it by hand. We can mix it with an electric mixer. We can blend it or whip it with a whisker. So there's a lot of different rich language opportunities. You can do the structure where it's you are cutting, you cut the cookie dough, you are cutting the dough. So there's is verbing, and then there's past tense. Oh, we're all done. We cut them all up. Helping them wire their understanding of grammatical structure. Or you can say, you are mixing, you mixed the dry ingredients. And so helping them through a real life experience. You're not drilling them. You're not asking them a lot of, irrelevant questions, but you're really helping them with this activity. It's fun. They're engaged, you're engaged, and there's a positive outcome. So cooking also brings together where you can prepare and teach them how to plan ahead, right? Oh, let's plan, what do we want for lunch? Or how can we make a healthy snack that we can take to the park? Or let's invite your friend Bobby over and have a tea party. So you plan, you prepare, you can look for recipes, and then you share it together. Again, rich language, home environment. Desserts are always a big fave, as you know, but I try to help encourage parents to be mindful, healthy eaters, right? To be good role models. And you can say, oh, let's make this special dessert and we can have it after dinner on Friday, right? So you don't have to have dessert every single night, or you can make a special birthday cake for your friend or your neighbor or a relative, right? Oh, Aunt Mary's birthday is on Saturday. Help me make these cupcakes. Also cooking together, eating together, all of that. And I've mentioned this in previous, and I will definitely in 2023 expand on what are picky eaters and how can we help navigate through that those early years, especially as they transition off, the bottle or off breastfeeding and really, baby-led weaning, and what does that mean? But picky eaters, and this has happened over and over and over again, if we bring them in the kitchen and in the cooking process, they really begin to have a relationship with food. And it's not just, some plate or some package that they open up, but that they can maybe find recipes and look at pictures and go shopping and plan together. You can even give them choices and, start to make deals and say, okay, we're going to make this casserole. And since you are 3 years old, you can take 3 bites and that's it. If you don't want any more, that's fine. I always link things in. How old are you? Okay, you can have 2 turns if you're 2. Or how old are you? 4. Okay, well, you are number 4 in line. And, again, be creative. But cooking together really, really helps with picky eaters or kids who are just a little apprehensive with expanding their palate, right? But you can bridge all of these things together by planning, making a list, shopping, prepping it together, and sharing, cleaning up, all of the steps. Again, they're not going to take the lead. You are in charge, but you can help them by including them, and it builds their appreciation. So go back to episode number 9, where I talk a lot about baby-led weaning and the connection between developing chewing skills, which are really, really important. And I will continue to talk more about food choices and how it's affected the last several generations. But I think it's even more prominent in the current day. But chewing and developing all of those oral motor skills with nasal breathing and mastication and tongue range of motion and speech development. There's a strong correlation, and they develop side by side, and then they really begin to overlap somewhere around that first birthday as we're beginning to introduce more and more solid foods and adult foods with them. So just kind of keep that in mind, that cooking and learning together in the kitchen just has a plethora of language-rich opportunities, as well as impacting their healthy relationship with food and their social connection with sharing a meal with family members. So it's just, there are many, many layers to this beautiful daily routine that we have to have. So number 10 is turn-taking games. And you probably think, turn-taking with a toddler, with a 1, 2, 3-year-old, what? It's the beginning. It's the introduction. Just like I said, that first year, there's a lot of auditory prep and brain enhancement going on and pre-vocalization before their first words kick in. Learning how to play in structured games, whether it's outdoor play or board games, which I love, really starts very, very young, and you can help them, because that's what human communication is, right? Conversation is a turn-taking event. Yes, we interrupt each other from time to time, and sometimes you can have a table full of friends that are all talking at the same time, but we are learning social cues, and we're learning how to socially engage with one another, and that our conversational skills change whether you're with your best friends or you're talking to the teacher or you're talking to your boss, and we modify them according to the context, right? But it really starts very, very young, and you can take some of these simple little turn-taking games, modify them. You do have to kind of do some pre-planning, be flexible, and know what your goal is. Your goal, especially when they're very, very young, is just getting them to follow some steps, some directions. Roll the dice, and you model. You cup the die in your hand and you go shake, 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 and then you roll it. Don't roll it. Here's a little tip. As a speech therapist, don't roll it openly on the table. Take the top to the box of whatever game you're playing and roll it in the box, because it has a lip, right? It has boundaries and it doesn't go rolling off the table. Because it's easy for a 3-year-old to get distracted by the die rolling across the table. As you're beginning to introduce these turn-taking games, and again, think of this very carefully, as you're shopping for the holidays or shopping for next year, board games typically start around 3 years of age. Again, depending on the child, depending on the family, keep it simple and adapt the games and build or move closer to the purpose of the game as their skills are enhanced, right? Turn-taking skills can be introduced around 2 years of age through adapted games, such as, just rolling a ball back and forth, bouncing it, or trying to, get it in a basket. It doesn't have to be a hoop. It could just be a laundry basket. I do that often. I also have kids peel off tape, painter's tape, because it can come in different colors. They can peel it off of, the whiteboard or the back of a door and scrunch it up in a ball and then throw it in the basket. Very simple little game, but it's a lot of object play, right, with their hands. And they're, again, working at midline. They're crossing midline, lots of different things. But you can introduce turn taking with cars, or taking turns on jumping on a little kid's trampoline, not one of those big outdoor ones, or building blocks. Oh, I put one on, you put one on. Or putting puzzles together, or even bubbles, like I mentioned in a previous episode. Those are all the introduction to turn taking, believe it or not. You bring it down, you keep it simple, and you engage with them, whether it's a couple of minutes or 10 minutes. It's you take a turn, I take a turn, Daddy takes a turn, or Bobby takes a turn. And you're helping them understand how it's a give and take. It builds patience, tolerance for waiting, and there's really this joy and satisfaction with sharing this activity together. It really does bring smile and just pure joy in their heart and in your heart. It's fun. I mean, I have, for 35 years, I played with kids. Yes, there are a wide variety of ages, but the younger they are, where you see pure satisfaction with just playing with bubbles, or, like I said, throwing wads of tape into the basket, or rolling cars down and over and off the table. And then when you do have sequences in a game, like you roll the die, you pick a card, and then you move your piece, right? So that's the sequence. What do you do first? What comes next? Getting them engaged with you. Again, if we want your 6, 7, 8-year-old to have good attention, guess when it starts? Yep. Since birth. When you're giving them attention when you're feeding them, when you're giving them attention when you're reading books, when you're giving them attention building blocks, when you're giving them attention learning how to play Candyland. All of that are building blocks to mature attention and engagement. And I know you guys say, okay, well, he's 2 and he doesn't sit still. Then bring it back. Right? Bring it back to playing peekaboo. Bring it back to getting under a blanket and reading a book. Bring it back to playing bubbles in the bathtub. And I'll talk about bathtub. That's a list on these number 12 simple steps. But you evaluate, you assess, you make a parental judgment, because that's what your role is. Where is my child now? And how can I help them build those skills? Right? If you say, oh, I have a 2.5-year-old and he doesn't sit still. Okay, then how can you help them sit still? You have to clear out the clutter, make sure they don't have too many choices. You have to show them that they're important, and you be present when you're playing with them. You have to turn off all of the background distractions. Make sure that your phone is on airplane mode. You go into their bedroom with them. You sit down on the floor and you build a cool tower castle with the mega tiles or magnetic tiles. And then you put some animals in there, and then you put a blanket over it and you say abracadabra. You be creative, but you need to be present and help them learn how to engage and focus on one task. That whole multitasking, and I know it's all complete BS. It's been proven over and over again. We as adults, try to fake it and pretend that we can listen to somebody, write a text, and answer emails all at the same time. Nope. That's not how our brain works. And if you're thinking about your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-year-old with that underdeveloped, beautiful brain that they came into this world with, it's under construction. They're in our hands, literally, to help really be the architect of that. So on that note, sequencing during some games, answering some basic questions. What do you need? When you're looking at, say you've played this game 2 or 3 times. Okay, what do we need first? Or you've set it up, you've had a couple of turns, and then you say, okay, who goes next? Are they attending? And usually when you're looking at a 2, 3, 4-year-old, 2 is still, again, in that introduction phase, right? They're really not playing games for the most part. Every once in a while, a 2-year-old will completely surprise me. But you're still doing some really basic, maybe you're not taking turns, but you're introducing the steps, right? There are many, many games such as Snail's Pace Race, which I love from Ravensburg, and Balancing the Moon, that, somebody is kind of the roll dicer and, or the dice roller. I said that backwards. And somebody is the mover, right? And so you can just introduce it that way. You can be very, very adaptive. You're introducing how to focus on this one task and share it together, and somehow introduce the turn taking, that I have a role and you have a role. There's another game that's pretty popular. It's called Pop the Pig. I want to say 8-10 years ago, I started using it in therapy. Again, you can use it at different levels. You can play the full-fledged game. I think recently it actually added a board to it, where before it was just, you have this cute little pig. He's very cute. He has a big buckle. The goal is to feed the pig and watch his belly grow as you feed him more and more. And then he pops his belt, right? Because his belly grows so much as you kind of push on his head. So the steps are, you can roll a dice, and the dice are just colors. Again, you can have that pre-academics. What color is this? Red. But then it's also matching. Find a red button. You have the primary colors, but you have multiple of them. Again, it's a little bit early with a 3-year-old to, identify the numbers when you flip it over, but some kids can. And then it's 1-to-1 correspondence. You push on his head or his hat to pump, number 3, 1, 2, 3. When it's in context, all of those academic things, colors, numbers, matching, that's relevant, right? But we don't just want to go across the room and say, what color's this? What color's this? Drill these numbers, match these numbers. All of that is just rote data It's not very fun for them. It's not very fun for you. But putting it in real context and using it for purpose or on purpose, that's true learning, right? So, but this cute little game, Pop the Pig, or like the other ones that I said, I love Balancing the Moon. That's a beautiful game. There's no winners or losers. We're just see how many pieces can we put on this half moon before it falls over, right? And it crashes, and it's hilarious. And these very basic introductions to real early game-like events helps on so many levels. So again, if you're listening to this and you're not done Christmas shopping, I think this is going to come out in early December. There are a variety of games. You can adapt when the kids are very young, then expand as they get older. You can play on teams if you have multiple age kids. That's always a good one to introduce the concepts of taking turns again. Quite often you can set up the game where there's no real winning or losing in the beginning. I do think a little competition when they're a little bit older is very, very important. I also think it's very important to be a graceful loser and to be, humble when you win, right? But a lot of these beginning at when they're 2 and 3 is just about finishing or just about playing together or just taking 10 turns or whatever you feel is a reasonable goal as you set forth. So, look at matching games. Concentration is a little hard for kids this young because it gets too skewed. But there are some matching games where they're bigger pieces. You can make your own too. You can also use it for descriptions. Like if you turn over an elephant and you say, oh, this animal lives in the jungle. He's gray and has a big trunk. So you're helping them with richer language. You're not just saying, oh, I'm looking for an elephant, but you're having richer language in that description. There are a couple of versions of charades, which I really, really love. Over the last several years, I've used this a lot with small groups with kids. There's an actual game called Charades for Kids, and it has different levels, I think even 4 levels. But again, this is a great one to play on teams and really help the kids act it out and put those that picture. There are written words, but there are also pictures, say a picture of a chicken, and you say, okay, you have to act like a chicken. And it's a lot of fun when you have, multiple aged kids. There's also the classic Go Fish. There's a squirrel game. There's the snail pace race that I mentioned, and Balance the Moon. So there are a lot of wonderful games. It's hard, I think, sometimes because every child's a little bit different, so you have to adapt a little bit differently. But you mom or you dad, grandparents, when you sit down, remember what your goal is. Is your goal just to get them to attend to do 4 or 5 trials? Is your goal to get them to follow simple, basic little steps? Is your goal to get them to match pictures that are the same and then to be able to, clear the board of, 10 items. Whatever it is, keep it simple, keep it fun, and support them as much as possible, and then be the best cheerleader that they need you to be, right? You know that turn-taking games like this, like Pop the Pig, or Balancing the Moon, then turns into those other board games that I think are very, very important part of early childhood development. And if you think about all the stuff that I'm talking, there are no electronics, right? There are no lights or bells or batteries needed. These are all things that moms and dads and caretakers can do with your child to enhance their learning, enhance their language, enhance their visual motor skills, their attention, their engagement, all of it, right? Social language, you can play one-to-one, you can play on teams. It's just a lot of fun that you continue to expand throughout your whole childhood. All right. So I have two more that I want to run through because they're pretty obvious, but to finish this list of 12, number 11 would be tub time. And I just want, this is really, really important in the sense that it's an excellent routine that I think is often kind of looked upon as a hassle, as like, oh my God, it's messy and they're wild and they're crazy. But it's a great opportunity to create an abundance of language skills while the kid is confined in a tub, right? You can close the door. If you have two kids, it does get a little wild, but keep in mind, you're kind of the director here. So you can navigate the toys and the bubbles, and you can sing familiar songs, and you can do some bath painting. And you can play in the water, you can play these games and then say, okay, now I'm going to put the timer on for 3 minutes or 5 minutes, and you can read them a book as they sit in the tub. Water is a very relaxing, it's warm, it's soothing. It can be a beautiful time to help transition to go to bed, but it's another opportunity that you have to feed your kids, you have to change your kids, you have to give them a bath. Use these as rich language opportunities. The bottom line is to be creative and be open and to be able to develop these routines that they look forward to and that are helping them build connection and helping build language and learning. And everybody's engaged and connected. And then you'll just watch them really thrive, right? And so bath time shouldn't really be looked at as a hassle. I know it can be messy and all of that, but it's just water. It's just water. But, at the same time, teach them, where do your dirty clothes go? Where does the wet towel go? You are throwing these questions, these directives, these choices, so they have an opportunity to process and listen. And yes, you're going to have to say, okay, I'm going to count to 3 and you're going to have to put your pajamas on. 1, 2, put them on. Sometimes you do have to be that authoritative parent, right? So number 12 is outdoor play. I cannot create a list like this and exclude outdoor play because that's putting all of this together. I think I've saved the best one for last because as the science comes out more and more over the last 2 decades and 3 decades, we as a human race are living more inside, and yet we really need that outside. It's movement, it's nature, it's language, it's rich, it's natural. We could start with the whole vitamin D. We could start with the fresh air. We can start with all of that. But for the purpose of this particular list, it's really about just take a walk. Go to the park, walk in your neighborhood, walk in your backyard, walk in woods, nature paths. Just walk. It could just be walking on your own grass. Can you find some body of water, like a creek or a pond or a waterfall or a bird bath? I'm here staying at my brother-in-law's house in Maryland, and it's been eons since I've really seen this beautiful bird bath, and I saw like 6 birds literally just having so much fun in the bird bath, washing themselves. But kids love to go outside. Are there frogs, worms, bugs, trees, flowers, different weather types, different clothing for different weathers? And again, the opportunity to use language and learn, oh, look, it's raining outside. What kind of shoes should we wear? Should you wear your slippers or your boots? Get them engaged, get them to think, get them to pay attention. That you're not just telling them what to do. Get your boots on, go get your boots. Can't go outside without your boots. It's raining. What do you need? right? And then outdoor play includes games, right? When they're little, right? When they're 2 and 3 and 4, just play tag, hide and seek. Obvious hide and seek, right? You hide behind a really skinny tree. Oh my goodness, where is Sarah? Well, I can't see her. What was she wearing? Oh, she was wearing a red top. Let's see. Do I see red? You get them engaged. Play duck, duck, goose. Again, I know it's been a long time since you and I were kids, and it's really hard to let go of all of our to-dos and our parentals and keeping it tidy and keeping it organized and keeping in line with what do I have to do next and the 100 different things. But it's so important these first several years because, again, if we want your 6-year-old or 7-year-old to play nicely with others, guess what? Guess where he gets it from? Us. You, me, we're the models. We teach them how to play. They don't always figure it out on their own. Now, do we need to, once we kind of teach them the basics when they're 3 and 4 and 5, then they need to negotiate the playground on their own when they're 6 and 7? Yeah, because they've had experience with us. When their brother pushes them over, then we've walked them through that process of, what was a better choice? How could you have used your words? How could you just, let your brother have his way and walk away and be patient and be understanding he's little or whatever the situation was. But if you want that 7-year-old to be able to negotiate on the playground successfully or with some grace and ease and confidence, we have to teach them when they're 2 and 3. We can also look at the season, right? The water play in the summer, fall, leaves, snow angels, puddles, mud. You can always play in the light rain. Kids are not going to get sick unless their immune system is already kind of crashing. But some weather is incredibly healthy and happy. And I know it's not good for our hair and our clothes get wet and we drag mud in the house and all of that. I know, but our kids need outdoor play more than ever. All right. And then the last thing on this outdoor play that I want to talk about, and I will talk a lot about in the future or in greater detail, are obstacle courses. And again, if you live in the country or if you live in a neighborhood where there are playgrounds, that's great. But you can also build your own obstacle course with some wood or some planks, some rocks. You don't have to go out and buy obstacle equipment is what I'm saying, right? But it really helps them move their body and navigate in unpredictable ways, right? And that's what they need. Again, our society as a whole, worldwide, we've moved inside, right? We have artificial light and artificial environment, right? We need to go outside and in real time navigate, stepping over some stones or climbing over a log or finding balance if the ground is unstable, building that coordination, building sensory body awareness. That all, believe it or not, this is what the science has taught me in 35 years. It builds a stronger network. It helps with attention and self-regulation and mood and all of this. Not only being outside in the sunshine and different weather and the fresh air and all of that, the physical part of navigating a playground or an obstacle course or your backyard. And again, it doesn't have to be fancy equipment. So you can use wood logs or build some steps or crawl under the bench or over the bench. follow directions. These are the 3 steps you have to do to, get a token or whatever it is, or I'm going to time you, or, you and your brother are going to do it together and you're going to, climb over the picnic table, help each other, pull each other up, do all kinds of very creative, realistic, fun activities. I've set up obstacle courses in my office from the waiting room, down the hallway, into one room, into the next, and built them for a ton of kids that are 3, 4, 5 years old. And, just using mostly my furniture, right? I have a robust coffee table that they could walk on or crawl under. I would tie colored rope and tape it from one side of the wall to the filing cabinet, and they would have to step over it without tripping. That's a really good one. They would have to balance on some cushions. They'd have to crawl under a chair, or I did have some steps, from an occupational therapist. So they would have to, and then jump off, and they would love it. And that would help really regulate them. There would also be language tasks involved. But you can just do this at home for fun, right? And teach them different language concepts to step over, step under, crawl around, walk onto 3 stones, or alternate your footing on these different leveled logs or steps. Watch them grow and develop their balance system. And if they fall, so be it. That's being a kid. Get on up. You're okay. Yep, you're great. You set it up that your 2-year-old, that you can hold their hand as they walk across a log that is, 2 inches off the ground. But you're building their confidence. And all of these things are things that you can do at home with them on a regular basis, right? On Saturday or on Sunday, or, over the holiday, whatever. But keep them in mind that you don't have to go out and buy tons of stuff or plastic toys, that you can build. And the whole idea about obstacle courses is that you change them, right? You don't want the brain to get acclimated. Oh, I've been up and down this plastic little ladder and slide 1 billion times. Okay, now you change it up. If you're making these yourself, or you're going to the park, or you're going on a nature walk, the brain wants change and novelty. That's how we expand ourselves. So we need a lot of repetition, and we need change. And I talk about what I've learned over those last 35 years. Neuroscience has really reconfirmed that it's an 80-20 rule, right? Especially when they're little, that they need a lot of repetition, and then they need change, and they need to test themselves. And that's when they fall and they get back up and they try it again. And that's how neuroplasticity works for us, and we expand our abilities. So on that, for this week, I finished my list of 12, and it's about some easy steps. Again, you've heard most of this. I want to put it in context. I want to reinforce what you can do with your child to build speech and language, listening, following directions, attention, strength, balance, coordination, engagement, social play. Help him thrive. Help him or her be the best version of themselves, because you are on a journey together and you can do this. And again, I'm so grateful to have this opportunity to share your precious time, for you to think about what else can I do as the leader in this family. So if you're finding benefit, please, please share with friends and family. Help me spread the word. Hit the like button, subscribe. You don't want to miss future episodes. I'm doing a lot of new things online, and I'm launching a YouTube channel in December. I'm so excited. Help me extend my reach, connect with new moms, expected moms, dads, grandparents. I'm on a mission to reach 10,000 new moms just like you in the year 2023. So you can take charge. I'll do it with you, and you've got this. So God bless, and I'll see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.